Jack Parsons, to me, is the greatest unknown, I don't know what to call him, philosopher, scientist, whatever he was. He was the greatest. He was one of the greatest men of the 20th century who was not known. Most people have heard of Buckminster Fuller and Albert Einstein and Aleister Crowley to some extent, James Joyce. Jack Parsons is virtually unknown, and yet he was more than anybody else responsible for the American space program and the fact that a man as that Neil Armstrong walked on the moon. He's responsible for the whole space program, and he was one of the greatest libertarian philosophers who ever lived. His book, Freedom is a Two-Edged Sword, seems to me one of the greatest statements of libertarian philosophy ever written. And if I had $1 million, I would print enough copies of that to put one in every home in the United States so that everybody would have a chance to read it. I'm a very ardent libertarian myself, but I disagree with most libertarians about a lot of issues. Jack Parsons is the one libertarian I agree with about almost everything in the 20th century. There are some 19th century libertarians I agree with about almost everything, such as Lysander Spooner, Ezra Heywood, Benjamin Tucker, but they're almost all forgotten, like Jack Parsons. Libertarianism does not have much popularity, although this country was founded on libertarian principles. Jack Parsons was not only a great libertarian philosopher and a great scientist, but he was a very gifted and talented and philosophical and intelligent occultist, which is hard for a lot of people to understand. Most people think you're either a scientist or an occultist. You can't be both. Jack Parsons is the classic example of that you can be both. There are many other cases in history like Isaac Newton, Giordano Bruno, Johannes Kepler, but Parsons was the only one in recent times who was undoubtedly a major scientist, or at least a major engineer, which meant that he had to have a lot of basic scientific knowledge to be such a great engineer, and a major practicing occultist. And so the fact that he was a scientist, an occultist, and a libertarian makes him a tremendously fascinating and important figure. And the reason he's not generally known is because most people can't understand how you can put science, libertarianism, and occultism together in one head. And that's why Jack Parsons is so important. He did it, and he was probably murdered by the United States government just because of that. Either that or he died in an accident, depending on whose story you believe. Well, the separation between science and occultism is a fairly modern thing. In the Renaissance, science and occultism were very closely related. As I mentioned, Kepler and Newton and practically everybody else who was important in the creation of the scientific revolution was also a practicing occultist. The outstanding example is Giordano Bruno, who was burned by the Catholic Church, burned at the stake on February 16th, 1600 in Rome. Bruno was charged with 18 counts of heresy, and including practicing magic and teaching the Copernican theory of astronomy and founding secret societies to oppose the Vatican. Frances Yates, a leading historian, wrote about her major topic was the birth of the modern scientific worldview in the Renaissance. She thinks Bruno may have founded either Freemasonry or Rosicrucianism, or maybe both of them. And in that tradition, Adam Weishaupt, the founder of the Illuminati, is another person in that tradition, and Aleister Crowley is another. He was Parsons' major teacher. The general view is that science is based on experiment and occultism is based on woozy thinking and blind faith. But the kind of occultism that the Western world has produced from the Renaissance to the present has been based on the same principles as science. It's based on very simple things. You do this and you observe the result. It's just like science. It's just the same thing as scientific experiment. You sit in a certain posture and try to empty your mind and see what happens. You change your posture and use a mantra. Instead of trying to empty your mind, you just keep repeating over and over, Om Namu Shivaya, Om Namu Shivaya, Om, or whatever the hell you want, Hare Krishna, 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 or whatever you want. My favorite is Shamati Shawati, Shamati Shawati, Shamati Shamati, Shamati Shawati. It's like a windshield wiper, but it really empties the mind pretty quickly. Shamati Shawati, Shamati Shawati, Shamati Shamati, Shamati Shawati. Magic in the Western occult sense is a whole bunch of tricks and devices, clever means, as they say in Hinduism, clever means to mutate your consciousness by blocking the usual paths your consciousness goes in. Ordinary consciousness is a conditioned response to early childhood experiences and early conditioning and early learning and so on, which is why the children of most Catholics remain Catholics, the children of most communists remain communists, the children of most Muslim fundamentalists remain Muslim fundamentalists, etc., etc., etc. If you want to break out of the robotic conditioning imposed on you in childhood, you need some kind of dramatic technique. And Western occultism is one of the more dramatic techniques of busting out of conditioned consciousness to become aware of the many levels of reality that you can perceive if you're not trapped in one particular reality tunnel. Parsons understood Crowley very well. Another American scientist who suffered as much misrepresentation or just plain being ignored by the mass media, Timothy Leary, also understood the importance of Crowley. Leary's work is very much in the same tradition as Crowley and Parsons. You do certain things and you observe the result, and you see what conclusions you can obtain from that. Crowley, Parsons, and Leary both used consciousness-altering drugs to a great extent. That is considered the major crime in modern America for reasons that go back to the witchcraft persecutions. Joan of Arc was burned at the stake for using drugs to contact superior intelligences, which she called angels. The Catholic Church called them demons. Whatever the hell they were, they told her to unite France and drive the English out. She used marijuana. It's very interesting that people are in jail all over this country for the same crime that Joan of Arc was burned at the stake for, isn't it? Jack Parsons was probably killed by the American government for using the same techniques of altering consciousness.